Welcome to this celebration of the life of Douglas A. Knoop. We will share in traditional readings, some somewhat untraditional remembrances, and much love. We begin with a reading from the High Holidays that I happen to know that Doug liked. Birth is a beginning, and death is a destination. But life is a journey, a going and a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death is a destination. But life is a journey, made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. In this time of loss, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures. They bring us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. This is a reading from Psalm 90, Poems of Praise to God. O God, you've been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity, you are God. As for us, you turn us in repentance and say, return, you mortals. The days of our years are 70, or by reason of strength, 80 years and more. But 1,000 years in God's sight are but as yesterday when they are past, as a watch in the night. That's that we may attain a heart of wisdom, would you teach us to number our days. And may your favor, O God, be upon us, establishing the work of our hands, that it may long endure. This next reading comes from the 23rd Psalm, the words of King David, who knew grief and loss, but also joy and life, and the blessing of God's nearness through all of this and more. I'll read them first in English. Jennifer will sing them for you in their original Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me to lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in the straight paths for the sake of my name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. These are the words of the 23rd Psalm.
salmavet lo irara ki atai madi shifticha mishantecha hima yinachamuni ta aroch lifanai shulchan negid tzorai dishanta vashemin roshi kosi rivayo rivayo ach tov achesed irdifuni klimechayai vishavti bivit Adonai
The 121st Psalm, not nearly as beautifully sung. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your going and your coming, now and forevermore. This reading comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, chapter 3. To everything there's a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot that which is planted. A time to tear down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to grieve, and a time to dance. A time to throw stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to discard. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silent, and a time to speak. In the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, remember him. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, remember him. When we're weary and in need of strength, remember him. When you are lost or sick at heart, remember him. When you have joys that you yearn to share, remember him. And then, so long as we live, he too shall live, for he's now a part of us as we remember him. It's a time to speak. Carol, Toastmaster first.
Thanks for coming. I don't know how many of you know how Doug and I met. So you're not supposed to start with so, but I am going to. So Doug and I met at Toastmasters International at a humorous speech contest. So your dad, your grandfather, won the contest. I was an impartial judge. Now, actually, I was impartial because I had never met him. This was the first time I had met him. He gave a great speech. When he was done, I went up to him and complimented him and found out that he was not supposed to speak. The person who was supposed to speak from his advanced Toastmaster club never showed up. But he won the contest. How's that possible? So he told me he always had a pocket speech, one ready. Well, even if I had one ready, it doesn't mean I am winning the contest, my God. So we got to speaking, and the story he had told in his speech was fabulous. I don't remember anymore, but I thought it was a true story. Of course, he told me it was not a true story. And that was the beginning part of our relationship. I found out that you could never believe anything Doug told you because he could say it with a straight face. In fact, at Bank of Louisville, my boss, who was the vice president of Bank of Louisville, Orson Oliver, I remember one day he was saying something to me, and I said, yeah. He said, Carol, I mean it. I said, because I was used to people pulling my leg. And he had a wit, too, about him. But he said, Carol, I finally had to believe him. And that never happened again, by the way. What? Didn't question me. But anyway, so there was a reception afterward. We sat down together, talked. We liked each other. So when we left, we gave each other a hug, pre-coronavirus, a good hug. And we exchanged business cards. So he called me, asked me for a date. We went to the movies. Neither of us could ever remember the name of the movie, let alone the movie. So years later, I said to him, I wonder what we were doing during that time. Neither of us remembered anything about the movie. We were young then. So at any rate, as I got to know Dad, as I got to know Doug, I found out more about him, that he could fix anything, build or fix anything. This is short, because that's what I want you to know. I fell in love at once. A man with a sense of humor who could fix anything. That is great marriage material. And he was. So we were together for 30 years, 28 of which were marriage. And it was a great life. And one last thing. He was the only sane person in our family. If you've met the Diamonds, I don't know about the Knoops, they may be saner, but whatever his parents did, they did right. Because you can talk to my granddaughters and my daughters, if they wanted sane advice, logical sane, not crazy, they went to Doug. And he always gave them, didn't steer them wrong. And he was calm. He didn't get crazy. You know, when he'd speak to you all, and I'd say, well, I'd ask him what he said to Amy or Lori or Patty. He didn't say much. He didn't have much to tell me about your conversations. But he basically didn't like to get involved in people's lives and tell them what to do. But if you asked for his advice, he'd give it. But he wasn't one to step in and shove his point of view on everyone. He was a great man. We'll miss him.
She's coming up. We're all proud of you. This is going to be great.
All right, so I am not a Toastmasters. Yeah, not at all. I will be reading this. Hopefully I'll make it through it, but I definitely did not do the Toastmasters. So here we go. Dad was a nationally known and very well-respected small-bore prone rifle shooter, as well as a highly sought-after gunsmith. He held many regional, state, and national championships. When I was in elementary school, Dad custom made me my own .22 rifle and started taking me to the rifle range on a regular basis. Some of my favorite memories of my dad were at the shooting range. We would shoot side by side, and then he would go over every single target with me and explain what I needed to do to adjust my aim properly. I don't know how long we spent at the range each time, but it was never long enough for me because I left that time with him. By the time we left to go home, it was always dark outside. I can still remember sitting in the front seat of the car, driving past Stanford Field. I was so amazed by the blue runway lights, and I loved watching the planes take off and land as we went by. And then we would always stop at the same convenience store. I would get a grape soda, and my dad would get his RC Cola. We would then go to the back of the store where they had a few arcade games. Dad would always play Pac-Man, and I would play Ms. Pac-Man, and we would just laugh the whole time. Once we got home, I would go straight upstairs and put my targets in my top dresser drawer. I would get them out and look at them all the time, either thinking back to what my dad had told me to do differently or smiling to myself at all of the bullseyes I had actually hit. I actually had those targets up until about 10 years ago when I lost them in a move. I'm sharing these precious memories because they recently led to another memory that I will cherish forever. 3 weeks ago, my husband and I met his kids and their spouses at a shooting range in northern Kentucky. I was shooting a new handgun that my son had gotten me as a combined birthday and Christmas present. This was the first opportunity I had gotten to fire it. The kids couldn't believe how spot on I was. Those was their words, not mine. I told them about how I grew up shooting with my dad, and that if I was spot on, it was all because of him. The next day, I texted my dad, who was back in the hospital. I told him about what the kids had said, and that I had told them about how I had grown up shooting with him. I told him that we had had a great time, and that I wanted to share this story with him and to thank him. I told him that I loved him very much. And he responded back to me, and I quote, "That sure brings back a lot of memories," with 2 exclamation points in this text. And then he said, "I love you," with a little red heart emoji. That was the last communication I had with my dad. I will cherish not only the memories of the nights that I spent at the rifle range, but also that short, precious text, knowing that it brought back those same precious memories to him as well.
That was way better than if I had read it. That was really awesome. These are words written by Lori. I wanted to share one of my favorite memories of my dad as well as one of my favorite things about him. Something people may not know about my dad is that he probably could have been a national Pac-Man champion. Common theme. I remember that our local Pizza Hut, they had a kind of Pac-Man game where you sat down and played. I remember those. And the game was in the table. Once we sat down at that game, I knew I might as well get comfortable because I was going to be there for hours. On one game, in which I would die in the first 5 minutes, my dad would keep playing forever on one set of lives. I bet he had a high score of every Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man arcade all around town. He was so much fun to watch. I'm going to blame him, though, for my boy's obsession with video games. My favorite thing about my dad is his ability to think through problems and life situations and come up with solutions without allowing emotion to cloud his judgment. He was the most even-keeled person I've ever met, level-headed and pragmatic. He's helped me make so many important decisions about life. He always did so in a confident, matter-of-fact way. He was my rock. It's what I will miss perhaps most of all. Lori. this is from Patty. When I think of my dad, so many wonderful memories come to mind. Custom auto shows, putt-putt mini golf outings, and hours of playing Pac-Man. Common theme. He took me to see E.T. when it first came out, and I've loved Reese's Pieces ever since. And while each of those memories with him is sweet and cherished, there are two things I share with my dad that I hold in my heart. First, my dad is a master storyteller. And I noticed you said is, and he always will be. Whatever the situation, conversation, or mood, he has a story to fit. Some were funny and at times unbelievable, like abandoning a date sneaking out through the restaurant's bathroom window. Some were lessons of do as I say, not as I did, like putting a Volkswagen Beetle on the top of a barn roof. My dad lived a rich life and loved to connect with people through stories and of his adventures. Because of this, I learned to pay attention to life's moments and keep them in my thoughts so that I could have stories to share too. Second, most precious to me is the gift of music which my dad shared with me. For as long as I can remember, we sang together. Every car trip was an opportunity for a duet. And if the trip was longer than to the gas station or the Winn-Dixie, then a full concert of our favorites was in order. We sang Kenny Rogers and Patsy Cline, and I may have been the only 5-year-old that knew all the lyrics to Marie Laveau's By Bobby Bear. Several years ago, I had the joy of going with Dad and Carol to Ware's annual Christmas party. My visit in town coincided with the event, and I was honored to join them. At the party, I met Dad's colleagues and friends and enjoyed putting faces with the names. The best part of the night was when the karaoke began, and my dad said, "Let's sing a duet." Without hesitation, we got up and sang an Eagles tune. There may even have been some harmonization. I have spent my life singing, but no song is better than when you sing it with your dad. Let me just say, for as long as those stories and those songs live on, so will he. Deborah.
He's asking if I'm going to be okay because some of my friends know I'm a really ugly crier. So we got to keep it together at least that long. And I definitely want to thank everybody for being here. I know this crazy state that it was trying for many people, and some people said they couldn't come, but we so appreciate you being here to support me and my family as we honor my stepdad. And this is my first time speaking at a funeral, and so I have been worried about finding the right words to encompass how dear Doug was to all of us. Most of you knew that Doug loved the game of golf. He loved the sport, and he loved the interaction with people on the course. So I thought it was appropriate to open with a quote by Arnold Palmer. Success in this game depends less on strength of body than strength of mind and character. Doug was always a guy that stayed in good shape. He liked to work out, play golf, dance with my mom, and do many projects around the house involving physical labor. He was a true handyman. Doug liked to stay active. He gave the best strong hugs, and even while in the hospital, he impressed the nurses and doctors with his strong grip. However, it was his wit and character that won people over and filled our lives with comfort and joy. Doug and my mom married 28 years ago when I was 23. I was a young adult, so at the time I never thought we would really become that close. He was a nice guy. But I was really very close with my dad growing up. I was a daddy's girl, so I didn't need a second father. Doug's gift of sitting back and being patient with us is something I really appreciated. Once I had kids, the relationship really started to grow. He was very involved with my girls. In fact, he was Samantha's very first babysitter when she was less than a month old. He volunteered to watch her while we went to High Holy Day services. Not sure many men would be comfortable doing that, but Doug didn't hesitate. I know this. Oh, yeah, breastfeed, yeah, he said that. But that is when I realized he had experience. He helped teach Lamaze classes. Yep, he did. That's one of the things I loved about Doug, a man of many lives. We would always learn something new about him. His talents and experiences were vast and sometimes shocking. So needless to say, Grandpa Doug became a household name and a huge part of our lives. As it turned out, I endured many changes as an adult. I grew up, and Doug helped me in so many ways. If I was panicked about anything, a leak, a broken faucet, Doug would say, "I'll be up to take care of it, Deb." Next thing I knew, he was up, and there would be a note on my counter saying it was fixed. He would drive up and back from Louisville to take care of me like it was no big deal. I was so thankful about it. Honestly, I think his handiwork, though, for me and my sister, brought my dad comfort. It was not his area of expertise. So he loved that Doug was always willing to take care of us and lend us a helping hand. And so their love story began. Seriously, one of the coolest things I like to share is that my dad and Doug loved each other. They looked forward to being together at events involving the girls and sharing holiday dinners at our house. In fact, my dad really wanted to be here today. And due to the circumstances, he was actually going to be here as of yesterday, and I think he got concerned. But he did call me up, and he said he did want to share, quote, "I admired him, I was proud of him, and I will dearly miss him." So, as it turns out, having two dads not only came in handy, but the relationship bridged everyone together and influenced us in such a positive way. I can't talk about Doug without talking about Hilton Head. My girls and I have been lucky enough to get to go every 4th of July since Taylor was 4. Mom and Doug actually shifted their September trip to July so we could join. They were doing their part to help me and my girls transition through a divorce. So from then on, their romantic getaway turned into a family trip, entertaining kids, and all the chaos that goes with it. But boy, that chaos was so much fun. My girls grew up with them. Doug actually taught Taylor how to ride a bike. He took them individually to hit balls. He got them ice cream and created his own personal moments with them. He provided a male presence that will be forever cherished. I'm also so glad that my girls got to see such a loving relationship between my mom and Doug. They adored each other. They really had fun together. But they were also so good about having time for themselves and their hobbies. For Doug, golf, for my mom, tennis. But they would always reconvene for family time or have their romantic night at Jazz Corner, their favorite. We were a part of their love story, and that was really special. As far as making an impact, I suppose this past Thanksgiving was telling. Doug, as some of you know, was at Jefferson Place, recovering from major surgery, and he was unable to be home with us. Thanksgiving was one of our favorite holidays. Mom, Doug, and Jen would always join us in Lexington. We would eat, play cards, go to a movie, come home, and of course, eat some more. Now, as you've heard, we love this time together, but those of you that do know the dynamic, when all the females in this household get together, it can be quite challenging. We definitely love each other, but we drive each other sometimes crazy, and we sometimes drive others crazy. But not Doug. That's what was truly amazing. It's why he was a perfect fit. He didn't mind us, and that says a lot. And I think he actually enjoyed us, and that says a lot more. He was the man that stays quiet and listens, but also interjects at a perfect moment to break our intensity. I know my girls appreciated that most. He could share a story about his childhood or about his dating years or tell a joke that would keep the girls laughing hysterically. And some of our favorites included things like him eating a whole jar of maraschino cherries before school, the day that they were testing for diabetes. Or, as I guess it was in your story, he shared these stories a lot, when he climbed out a bathroom window while on a date because he realized he didn't have enough money to pay the bill. Whether an unbelievable story or a witty one-liner, he did make us laugh. And laughter heals the soul. The truth is, Doug balanced us. So this last Thanksgiving, though we did try to keep things normal, our dynamic was off. I still cooked, but hosted at Mom's in Louisville, and everyone made sure to visit Doug at the nursing home before we had our holiday dinner, but it just wasn't the same. And that's when I realized that Doug was the key to our perfect holiday. He was the calm to our chaos. That's why I keep coming back to this word balance as I think of him. A feeling derived from being whole and complete. It's a sense of harmony. So as we try to find closure and say goodbye, I just want to say, as we called him, Douglas A. Knoop, thank you for bringing perfect harmony to our family. You will be forever in our hearts, and we will always love you.
There are probably Toastmaster rules for being the sixth speaker. And after that, I think they're probably be brief and recognize that all the good things have already been said, but we'll say them again a little bit. The real shame of this wonderful gathering of remembrance and love is that Doug could not be here to share it with all of you. Always a Toastmaster, he would have known just what to say and just how to say it. But even more the loss, he would have been so proud of all the words that you've written and said and sung. Speaking your hearts, it would have been such a blessing for him to be able to hear your words and know how much his memory and his love has meant to each and every one of you in many different ways. But of course, he did know that, just as you have always known that you will always feel his love. Your husband, your father, your grandfather, and your friend lived a great life for 83 years upon this earth. And the very best thing about it was that every moment that he got to share with people in this room and many, many more. Beyond the time with his family and the people he loved, Doug was a man of simple taste. On a good day, he ate strawberry ice cream and a banana or two and a glass of Sprite every day. On a good day when he was younger, he'd play a round of golf or two with good friends, or he'd watch a golf tournament or read about golf, or putt-putt, you're catching that. When he was younger still, he loved spending time on the range with a rifle or a daughter or a friend. Doug Knoop loved to sing and dance. He was always up for a game of rummy. He loved to talk. He loved to listen. He was a really good listener. Even when you didn't think he was listening, he was listening. And even when you were expecting him to be judging you for your words, he never would. Doug loved a certain degree of order in his life and a certain degree of chaos. He liked the same foods at the same restaurant every time he went. But he loved being the balance in the sometimes crazy lives of all his girls. Some of those best times were at Hilton Head because, if you think about it, he got to do all the things he loved. In one place, at one time. Family and friends and golf and good times, maybe some cards, but always love. And most of all, he loved you, Carol. The love of his life, and the love that you two got to share for 30 years, that was a lifetime. So I'm going to try observe the Toastmaster rule and make these remarks eloquent and brief, and immediately to the point. This gathering of memory and of love represents the very best things in Doug's life. Because look around. You're that. Not just the words that have been shared, but the people who have shared them and those who've come to hear them. Loving, caring, speaking, listening. From good times and in hard times too. That was always Doug at his very best. Doug wasn't Jewish, but we always considered him an honorary member of the family. And when we lose someone we love, we say, may his memory be a blessing. And I can say that of Doug because he was a blessing in all of your lives. Before he was a memory, and he will be ever still. May his memory live on in you always. May his life be eternal in your love. May you love one another as he will always love you, now and always. Amen. Here are a few readings not from so long ago as the Bible. If my boundaries stop here, I have daughters to draw new maps of the world. They will draw the lines of my face. They will draw my gestures, my voice. They will speak my words thinking they've invented them. They will invent them. They will invent me. And I will be planted again and again, and I will wake in the eyes of their children's children's children, and they will speak my words. So let us treasure the time that we have and resolve to use it well, counting each moment precious, a chance to apprehend some truth, to experience some beauty, to conquer some evil, to relieve some suffering, to love and be loved, to achieve something of lasting worth. Help us, God, to fulfill the promise that's in each of us, and so to conduct ourselves that generations hence it will be true to say of us too, that the world is better because of the brief space that we lived within it. This is by George Eliot. It's called The Choir Invisible. Oh, may I join the choir invisible of those immortal dead who live again in minds made better by their presence, live in pulses stirred to generosity, in deeds of daring rectitude, in scorn of miserable aims that end with self, in thoughts sublime that pierce the night like stars, and with their mild persistence urge men's minds to vaster issues. So to live is heaven, to make undying music in the world, breathing a beauteous order that controls with growing sway the growing life of us all. Before we read our concluding prayer, these two words. It's a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love and hope and dream, to be and to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this is a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death can touch. When I die, give what is left of me away. to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. So look for me in the people I've known and loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that is left of me is love, please give me away. Please rise for the memorial prayer. It's called Kaddish. It's written actually in Aramaic. I'll read it for you. These words are a couple thousand years old. They formed the beginning of the prayer service in the Jewish community, and they're the core of what became the Lord's Prayer. They don't talk about death, really. They talk about life. And they remember that we live this life together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, b'adma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach l'olam u'meir u'maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kurusha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God grant peace to all those who mourn and comfort us for our loss. And let us say, amen. Go your way. Remember him always. Go your way. May love be with you. And may you live your lives in ways that would have made him proud and in ways he knew you had within you always. Amen.